or let you know that. All right, so welcome. Our topic this evening is getting and keeping liability insurance for your early childhood program. And I will just say, if you don't know me, I'm Kay Storck. I'm lead professional development specialist at NECC. I manage the work of CDA as well as the business training series. I also facilitate growing brain trainings and some other independent trainings. Happy to be with you this evening. Some of you have had me as an instructor for CDA or BTS, so it's good to see you. And I will just give you this disclaimer as we're talking about insurance. I am an early childhood educator. I have spent over 20 years in the field of early childhood. I am not an insurance agent, okay? So I've put together this webinar from trainings that I've watched, insurance agents that I have talked to. So I am a facilitator sharing out some information that may be helpful to you all as you navigate the field right now. We've heard feedback from people that there are challenges with liability insurance, so we want to make sure that you are all well informed. I also have our resident DHHS expert, Gina Ewing, is on the call in case I need to phone a friend if anybody has questions regarding licensing and insurance and how those go together. So thank you for joining us, Gina. We have some other staff that are on the call as well, mentors and others that want to get more familiar with liability insurance. We will definitely have time at the end to take any questions that you might have. Are all in the field doing the work right now, so you may have experiences that would be super helpful to share out. So if there's an appropriate time in the training where you have something that you would like to add or give feedback on, please feel free to put that in the chat or to do the raise hand, and you can take yourself off mute and share what you know or give your experience. So definitely know that you all are doing it and want to hear from you as well. So this primarily comes from Sam Phillips is her name. She is in Texas. She is an insurance agent. She did this webinar through Fran Simon. This was back in August. And Gina and I both happened to be on that webinar and thought, what great information this is. She's also licensed in many states, including Nebraska. So her contact information is there. It'll be at the end of the webinar as well, if you're interested in reaching out to her. But just so you know, this is not my information. I am sharing out. She gave us permission to utilize her training. So, all right, we are going to go ahead and get started. Our objectives for tonight. We are going to review insurance trends in childcare. We are going to discover tips for finding and keeping insurance. And we are also going to learn some strategies to make your childcare less risky. Okay, so those are kind of our 3 goals for the evening. So my first question for all of you tonight is, any of these issues up here, have you personally encountered them in the last year or two in your program? You can either do a thumbs up, you can do like a emoji, or you can raise your hand or whatever, put it in the chat, yes, me. Have you seen in your own experience an increase in premiums, a decrease in coverage, being dropped by your insurance carrier, or difficulty finding insurance? If you've had any of those issues, please go ahead and put that in the chat, or do like yes me, a thumbs up, or raise hand or something. Anyone having issues with any of these insurance topics? Chelsea says all of the above. April says yes. Good. Kathy says that her prices stayed steady and no problems so far. Awesome. I hope it stays that way for you. We've heard from providers that it has been a little bit of an issue, so that's why we're doing this. Good. Michelle said no either. Awesome. It's good information to have, especially if your rates do jump up, or you're interested in maybe thinking about changing insurance carriers or something like that. Good to know for both licensing and for insurance, things that can make you less risky or help out your case. Here are some trends that have been observed in the last year. Now, this is nationwide, not specific to Nebraska, so that can account for some of the high amounts, like on the coast, it's definitely more. But this is a trend that they are seeing. Now, these dollar amounts are not the amounts of the premium. They're actually the increase above the premium, like how much it's been going up, which is pretty significant. That first row there is with no claims. Nothing has happened at all. And that has been how much above the regular amount of premium, how much the increase has been. And then it's even worse if you do have a claim. Those numbers are just staggering how much those increases in premiums are that some people have seen. So it's good to be aware of what's going on out there, and hopefully that it's not affecting you, but other people are definitely seeing some issues. So, a quote here from a claims department VP, really the issue is abuse claims, physical or sexual abuse, and that's what's causing insurance rates to increase and policy limits to be reduced. People are, making claims, or people are getting sued, and the payout from the insurance companies can be anywhere from $500,000 to over $100 million. So, their quote says, when you're dealing with children, they don't care if the insured is responsible or not. They want someone to pay. So that is a big part of it. These are some of the payouts that insurance companies have had to make in the last couple of years. Everything from abuse and molestation accusations of $2.8 million. A parent slipped and fell at a party, and that was $863,000. A 10-month-old was burned with a bottle warmer, over $500,000. And even a child fell off of a changing table and broke their arm, and over $100,000 for that one too. So this is why the rates are going up and insurance companies are getting out of the childcare market. So this is part of the problem, is that a lot of insurance companies are not willing to take the risk anymore, and they're just leaving the childcare industry. So it's getting harder and harder to find a company that will insure childcare. In-home center doesn't really matter. There's a issue there with people, even the companies even taking on the risk. So here's just some quotes there. Pulling back on daycare and preschool, not in the market to expand to daycare, take a pause in new childcare business. A claims adjuster even said the daycare industry is uninsurable these days, targets with false abuse claims. Might be nominal, like it might not even be that big of a deal, but they want like a 6-figure settlement from it. We live in a very litigious society, right? People will sue for just about anything. So that is what is causing the issues in the insurance industry right now. It's actually a quote that this came from Sam Phillips. This wasn't from me, but she had a client here in Nebraska, or she heard of one, that they just closed in this past year because they couldn't find insurance. They've been operating for over 50 years. They were, at a step 3 in the step up to quality. They didn't do any 24-hour care. They weren't a franchise. They were denied by 60 different plans. And since they couldn't find insurance, they just had to close their doors, because as we know, that's a requirement for licensing. So I'm not sharing all of this with you to scare you. So I think the saying is, well informed is well armed, right? So it's just good to know what's going on out there, and what we're up against or could be up against that could make a challenging field even more challenging. So we're going to talk about, hopefully it's not all doom and gloom. There's definitely some things that you all can do to improve your chances of keeping insurance and of not having issues. So what we're going to talk about now is about keeping insurance. And then in a little bit, we'll go on to if you need to try to find insurance. Okay. So For keeping insurance, this Sam has said, really, you want to suspend services that leave you exposed. So that could mean things. I did not know this until recently, but insurance companies do not like it if people outside of you and your families have access to your center, to your business. So if you rent out your facility, like if you have an apartment above your garage, if you have some other rental space on your property or something like that, they don't really like that. So that's something to consider too. Also, things like trips to the pool, lake, splash pad, water makes them uncomfortable. Trampolines and inflatables, anything they can jump on and break a bone is something they do not like either. And the other thing to remember is, you have a great family event, you have an inflatable in your backyard, you take a bunch of pictures, you post it on Facebook. They look at that kind of stuff. So I would suggest that you remove photos and verbiage that show those activities. So I'm not asking you to lie. I'm just saying it would be ideal if you weren't doing those activities. And then if you have in the past, that those pictures aren't available for everyone to see out there. That can help you. They also recommend paying small claims out of pocket. So, it might seem like a big amount if it's several $100s, but they really don't want to see that you have claims on your account. So if you can, it's best if you can pay those small ones out of pocket. And then also, do not let your coverage lapse due to non-payment. That can be a really big issue. So you want to make sure that you're keeping current, that you don't forget about it. Usually, they're pretty good about reminding you, 30 to 45 days out that it's time to renew. But keep an eye on it, mark it on your calendar, because that can be a problem if it lapses. Not only is it a problem with licensing, but it's easier to maintain what you've got than to go out there and try to get it again. Okay. So she mentioned that as being important to not let it lapse. Another key is keeping a clean licensing record. So insurance companies are really scrutinizing licensing inspections. So these quotes up here all relate to risks such as lack of supervision, unsafe equipment, that kind of thing. But we have heard of other providers who've been denied insurance for something like a paperwork violation. Maybe they didn't have a health form on file, or maybe we don't know exactly what it was, but maybe they were missing, they didn't have all 12 professional development hours for the year, or whatever it might be. Sometimes if they see any kind of violation, that would give them a reason to say, no, we're not going to do that. So it could be, again, that supervision complaint, any kind of inspection violation. So if you think through what do you have to do to be safe for your licensing inspection and to pass that, then you want that for your insurance as well. So keep your record clean. If you are in the market for switching or looking at for different insurance, here's kind of the timeline just to keep in mind. Again, this is if you're already licensed. Is there anybody on the call who is not already licensed? Everybody's already, okay, good. So Ashley, not yet. Okay. The timeline for switching or finding insurance is you kind of have to count backwards, right? So it can be, say, if you're switching to somewhere else, it's 30 to 45 days before the policy expires, when normally the insurance company is letting you know. So it takes at least 30 days for an underwriter to review your application, a couple weeks for you to get all of your application filled out and the paperwork collected and everything. So you really want to have your ducks in a row and allow a couple months to kind of do all this, especially if you're getting quotes from different insurance companies. And then usually those are only good for like maybe 30 or 60 days. Like you have a certain amount of time where you have to, accept or decline or whatever. That there's just that window when you have to do that. So really try to stay ahead of the game and be up on your timing for that. So now, like for Ashley, with new licensing, DHHS requires that you have a current quote for your application, and then the insurance has to be active at the time of your inspection or your license approval. Okay, so there has to be proof of activation prior to them issuing your license. So that is something to keep in mind. Now, we do also have a bill currently in the legislature in the state of Nebraska where right now the level that's required by licensing is $100,000. And the bill right now the suggestion is to increase it to $200,000. So now on one hand, it is meant to protect you, to help you have to have a higher amount of coverage of safety there, but that's going to affect your premiums, right? If you want more, you have to pay more. So that is something to consider. We don't know where that will go or what will happen with that, but First Five had a policy update this week, and that was one thing that did get mentioned, is that they are that is working its way through the legislature right now. All right, so also be aware of that certificate, of knowing where it is, your insurance certificate, noting that expiration date, and again, making sure that's on your calendar. Michelle, what if you have an umbrella policy as well to cover expenses? So are you saying like you have both? Like for homeowners, can you say a little bit more about that?
I know a friend of mine that does it. She has her regular policy for the childcare, but then she carries an umbrella policy as well to help
Okay.
cover things. I don't know exactly how it works. I just know that's what she tells me she has.
So are you asking like if the two together were 200,000, like is that acceptable?
Yeah, I mean, so if you have two policies, and are you still gonna have to have that 200,000 for the state, or is that? I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that. I believe that you need the 100,000, like specifically in the liability insurance, for your business. I'm gonna guess that they would want the 200,000 to be the same. Gina, I'll ask you, I'm gonna phone a friend. For licensing, you can't have that split, right? I mean, that needs to be one business liability policy that has the whole amount on it, right? For licensing.
Lingo chimed in too, that will be determined by DHHS, but
Right.
split because of two separate businesses. I'm sorry, you're breaking, I have terrible Wi-Fi. I got booted out once. I don't know if you saw that. So you were breaking
Yes.
up. Can you repeat the question?
Yes, she's asking if you can combine an umbrella policy with a business policy to be the amount that's required by licensing, or does it all have to be in your one business liability insurance policy?
I've seen one always when I worked
Yeah.
for licensing, and just
Okay.
so that people know, I've worked for licensing for 16 years, but I've been gone for 3 years and there's changes. So there's
Sure.
that.
Okay.
And yeah, 100,000 is what they're looking for. I've seen it combined with other things on one sheet. Like what was at the bottom? Compensation, workers' comp. I've seen it combined. So what they're looking for is that liability of a minimum of 100,000. So it doesn't matter if it's combined, I guess, on the certificate of liability insurance. But that is a question for licensing for sure. I will refer you back to them. Yes.
Thank you, Gina. I appreciate that. So the answer is we're not really sure, but you do need to show the proof currently of 100,000 when your DHHS person comes, and we'll have to see what happens with legislation if they raise that amount. I assume that it would be the same, but yeah, that would be determined by DHHS. Good question. All right. When you are trying to find a specialist or an agent, there's some key things to be looking for. If you've taken the business series, you know, similar to finding a tax preparer, it's important to be able to interview your potential insurance agent to make sure that they are a good fit. Are they licensed in the state of Nebraska? How long have they been doing this? Have they been insuring any other childcare facilities? Are they familiar with how childcare works? In-home centers, are they highly rated? How do they handle claims? So some good questions to consider. I'm going to see if I can put in the chat for you. Hey, Brandy, I'm going to call on you. Can you put in the chat the business liability agent questionnaire for me from the file, if you can find it? From the business series, there is a list of questions that you may want to ask an insurance agent that can be helpful to make sure that, you know, you've got all of your ducks in a row and that they can cover what you want to have covered. So you want to develop that strong working relationship with the agent, and they should be reaching out to you at least once a year to review your policy and coverage. So they should be in contact with you ideally, and you want to make sure that you reach out to them too if there's any changes to your business. If you move, if you get a different vehicle, if you add playground equipment or something, you want to make sure that you notify your agent of that so that that can be noted on your policy as well. And when there is a claim, now I think about this too, like if a kiddo falls and gets hurt in your care, you contact your DHHS person right away to say, hey, this happened, just so you know, right? They want you to do that. So with insurance, if you think there might be a claim, if something happens, they also say you can do something that's not a claim. It's called report only. And you can do a report only that does not affect your policy. It just means that you're alerting your agent that there could be a claim in the future, but there isn't right now. Okay. And that is not supposed to affect your premium or anything in any way. So that can be helpful so that they're kind of in the know that there was an incident. They don't know if there'll be a claim or not, but they are aware of the situation anyway. So yeah. Oh, Kelly said that she found it tricky last summer. People were referring to the website. Yes, that can be difficult. They want you to go to the website and fill out the application before a real person gets in touch with you. That can definitely happen. Brandy's put in the chat for you that questionnaire, so that can be useful when you're thinking about that if you don't have your BTF materials handy. Whether you're getting insurance for the first time or switching companies, it's important to have all of your paperwork handy. So you will need all this information for your application. I recommend keeping it all in a folder so that you've got it all in one place. You know, if you're a family home care too, if you are a center, and even some home care ones, depending on your location, you may have had to do this for zoning. All right. So if you had to do any of this for zoning, then hopefully you kept all that paperwork together, and you will need something similar for insurance. So updates you've made to any systems or structures, knowing what type of construction and roof you have, the square footage, when it was built, all that kind of stuff. If it's been modified or modernized in any way, even if you're just leasing or renting, whether you own or rent, they want to know that information as well. So good to keep all that on hand in one location. Be very careful when you are completing your application. Only answer what they ask for. So don't overshare, but also don't leave anything blank. Okay. So they said even if it doesn't apply to you, just put doesn't apply or NA or something so that they know you saw the question and that you didn't need to answer it. Like they just don't want blanks there as if you skipped over it. Okay, so you want to be thorough and answer everything to the best of your ability of what they ask. And there'll also be some supporting documents that they will want. Different companies probably have different things that they ask for, but they'll want full copies of your current policy, They'll want to see your license. If you're accredited, they'll want to see that certificate. They might even ask for the owner's resume. They want to see that the person in charge has experience and that they are well equipped and trained to be in the childcare business. They may also want to see your policies or handbooks that have to do with your abuse prevention and reporting procedures. And also a current valued loss runs, which is your claims history report. So I'll dive into that just a little bit because that was kind of a technical term I had to dive into myself. So it's a loss run is a snapshot of insurance claims that have been filed against your policy previously. So if none have been filed, it will just say no losses reported. But insurers will review that to see, how many claims do you have on there? How risky are you? You can get, there's like, how do I come about this? You can get a loss run by contacting your insurance agent. You may be able to request it through their online portal, or you may need to call the office and speak with a real person. So that depends on the company and how they handle that. Has anyone looked up their loss run before? Anybody have comments or want to share anything about the loss run? Has anybody done that? It was new to me. I didn't really know about it. And maybe they just between agents and companies, they do it like behind the scenes when they're going over your paperwork. But I didn't know that you can request that and you can have a copy in your own files of any claims that may have been made. All right. It is important to be familiar with your policy. As soon as your quote or policy comes, you want to look it over, call your agent with any questions, and really know what your coverage includes. Property, general liability, what all is on there. Make sure it matches what you've asked for. I have a friend who, now this is just her regular homeowner's policy, but they were discontinuing the particular policy that she'd had for years. She had to switch to something else, same company. They sent her her new policy and she looked it over and she called them and she's like, this isn't my house. This wasn't the year it was built. I don't have a fireplace. This isn't the type of siding that I have. Like, and he said, oh, well, we just kind of do an aggregate of what your neighborhood has. And she's like, take this off, take this off. She ended up saving hundreds of dollars on her homeowner's insurance because she went through it. Like, how many of us do that? I know I don't. But she went through and, she checked off all of that and she called them back and is like, this is not accurate. And they updated it and she had a lot of savings. So they sometimes make mistakes or they sometimes generalize or they're not supposed to, but make sure you look it over when you get that policy and make sure that it has everything that it's supposed to have and then it doesn't have anything that you are not interested in. All right. So also, if you took the business training series with us, I suggest you look over the session that we did week 5 on insurance and risk management. If you still have your participant manual, we did liability insurance bingo. And so we talked about, Tom Copeland and what's good features to have, what coverage you want in there. So I recommend going back to that if you've done the business series with us. All right. Sam's thing is, Sam Phillips says, tell a better story with a narrative. So her big thing is to control the narrative. What is being out there or what is shared about your business? Documentation is your friend. If there are any claims or licensing violations, you want to collect all of the paperwork that shows what happened and how it was corrected. So that could, involve describing remedial efforts. An example would be like active supervision. If there was some kind of supervision violation, maybe if you have an employee or something happened, and what did you do? Was the employee warned? Were they terminated? Were they asked to take additional training like active supervision? What do you have in your policy manual or your handbook on how you're going to handle different situations? really emphasize what you do proactively. All right. Do you have regular review trainings on supervision? What are your written policies on abuse and staff training? Can you show that you take active supervision? For example, that's in our NECC learning library that people can take on your own time and, get the credit for the certificate for that. Do you have that certificate handy that you've taken that and know what appropriate supervision is? So whatever you can do to show that you are doing everything in your power to prevent situations, that is going to make you look less risky to the insurance company. Also, again, showing what you're doing to mitigate risk. Document your protection and maintenance features. Do you have cameras? Do you have, so it's not just like that when the children are in your care, supervision kinds of things and things you have to have for licensing, but also things that relate to caring for your property. That even include, as home providers, that includes, do you have a hail-proof roof? Do you have burglar alarms? Do you have exterior lighting? The things that will protect your property, as well as that safety and security when children are in your care. So again, document, have all of these papers somewhere that shows what you're doing to make sure that you're, up to date, that you're doing whatever you can for alarms and systems to help out. She also says, once in a while there is a violation, right? Something happens, but she says how you own it is really important. Again, that's, documenting what's going to prevent that from happening again. Really try to get ahead of it. And again, that documentation and what you can do to tell a better story is important. She has on her website what's something that's called a narrative guide. And the idea is that it's a folder or brochure of what makes your program less risky that you could include with your insurance application. It's kind of like marketing yourself for insurance. So not unlike how you might market your program for families, but it's a way to show the insurance company, hey, I'm doing all the things that I can to mitigate risk. So I'm going to put the link for that in the chat for you. It's free. You just go to the website and put in your information and they will send you the link to this narrative guide. It's fillable. You can also do this on your own. It's something where basically what you're trying to put together is highlight awards and accomplishments. Best of Omaha, 5 years in a row. Show photos of how safe your space is. If you've got alarms or bells or whatever it is, if you've got the No Child Left Behind auto alarm or whatever, really play that up that, hey, we are super safe here. So that's where you can get that free template. You're welcome to use that, or like I said, kind of come up with your own brochure or list. Like if you've been doing this for over 20 years, highlight your experience, all your years of education, your years of experience. They really, again, I mentioned that earlier, they want to see that you know what you're doing. So that can be good. I actually didn't realize about this narrative guide until this presentation that Sam Phillips did. And then I was talking with a couple different insurance agents and asking them, okay, this one lady did this webinar. Like, I want to verify this information before I share it out with other people. And one of the agents I talked to, he said, oh, absolutely. I said, this is a lot of work for our providers to pull together all this information and do this kind of like flyer, brochure, whatever. I said, does it make a difference? And he said, absolutely, that if you're able to show that all the things that you're doing that make you safer and less risky, that could definitely help your case when it comes to insurance. Okay. Sorry, guys, my computer is not advancing. Hang on a second. All right. Can everybody still hear me? Hopefully my computer will catch up for a second and I'll be able to advance my slides. Some other things that can make you less risky is, again, for your property, thinking about, do you have a backup generator if the power goes out? Do you have like a steel roof or like a 30-year roof or whatever for your construction? Do you have those choking devices, the life vac choking devices? Again, those auto alarms. Do you have something for water leak detection? That can be really important. We had I think it was Sam in this webinar. She was saying that, there we go. She was saying that she had a client who she knew where the water shutoff was, but nobody else did. And she went on vacation and something happened with the water and nobody knew how to shut it off. So make sure that, one, that you're keeping up with your routine maintenance so that property problems are less likely to occur. But also, water damage is one of the most common and most expensive claims. Even if it doesn't seem like much, an overflowing toilet can be thousands of dollars of repairs. So those cars that get left down there, like, you're really got to keep an eye on them because you don't want any water damage. And again, if you're going to be on vacation or have a sub or something, make sure that more than one person knows where the water shutoffs are in case there is an emergency. And again, on your property, keeping your trees trimmed, your gutters clear, that if you have sprinkler system, that's inspected and everything is good. Sometimes that stuff can like back up, like the sprinkler system can back up in your house. All right. Vehicles, use of vehicles with children in your care is a feature that can make you more risky to an insurance company. So if you are going to transport children, you want to really make sure that you've got record that your vehicle is, good maintenance, that, you've got that alarm system, that you've taken the transportation training, that you have a clean driving record, all of those things that can help your case. Here's some other ways to reduce your liability exposure. So now, again, this goes back to licensing, the correct ratios, everything in good repair, showing that you're doing regular drills for fire, storm, intruder, inspecting stuff, taking care of anything that might cause an injury, anything sharp or broken or whatever, that's all taken care of. We've also heard, interestingly, that a couple providers, the insurance companies have told them that they need to become an LLC to be insured. I am not an expert on this. Tom Copeland has said that there can be some negative tax implications to becoming an LLC, but we have heard from a provider or two where that was a requirement for some carriers for insurance. Has anybody else run into that? I'm seeing some puzzled looks. So I'm hoping that that's not the case for the majority of people. But if that would come up at some point in time, now we know, and it's not coming out of left field for you, just so that you're aware that some people have required that, or some companies have. Here are some, again, of the common violations linked to child care insurance claims. This goes to regular maintenance of your space, keeping everything in good repair, and also that supervision. We can't look away for a second, right? We got to keep our eyeballs on them at all times. So these are some of the common violations that they see. And here are some of the ones that come to the top that are really scary for insurance companies. These could be things that would basically get you dropped like immediately from your insurance. Neglectful supervision would be at the very top. Any access to chemicals, hazards on the playground, issues with background checks, either not doing them or having one that doesn't come back clean, but they are still working there anyway. I don't think for most of you that's an issue, but especially with centers, that can be a big problem. We've known for a while that 24-hour care has been a feature that insurance companies do not like. They have not liked that for a long time, but something to keep in mind. It can be much more difficult if you are offering extended care in any way like that. Dogs. So when I was kind of joking with this friend of mine who's an agent, we were kind of talking through this, and he's like, the big ones are dogs, swimming pools, and cars. So he said, and I would add trampolines too, right? If you can break a bone, it's, or if there's water involved. But the dogs one is a real one. We know of at least one provider in our network who's having difficulty getting insurance because she has at least one dog that is like a pit mix, Rottweiler, like something, one of those breeds that kind of scares people, right? And so insurance companies do not like that at all. I mean, some of them don't even like any dogs. Doesn't matter if you've got a poodle or what it is, that they that can be a concern because they can seem super calm and gentle and be great with kids. But you get a kid that pokes something where they shouldn't, and the dog has a natural response to protect itself. So they really don't like dogs. Just putting that out there. And then of course the pools, DHHS doesn't like pools either. On the trampolines, providing transportation, and then again, like I mentioned, that rental unit on the property. So what do we do? Again, we're not here to freak you out. We just want you to be aware of the challenges that exist in the market today, and we want you to help you mitigate risk and tell the best story for both licensing and insurance. So really, really keep yourself organized. As far as, folders maybe for different categories, right? It seems like a lot of paperwork. Maybe you have a property folder for, the exterior, the features of your home. Maybe you have one for your vehicle. Maybe you have a folder for safety items that help you, like alarms or cameras, that kind of thing. Maybe you have your licensing folder. Maybe you've got another one for documentation of incidents that could turn into a claim or something. So really, really keep yourself organized and have all of your paperwork handy. Keep your clean record, no violations. Do what you can to minimize those risks and point out how you're doing your best to be safe. Pay those small claims out of pocket. And then really check with your agent or broker for options. Sometimes if you get a broker, they are working with multiple insurance companies, and maybe they can shop around and get you a better rate or more features for the same rate. So you might want to just check in with your agent and see, is everything the same? Is there anything I need to do different, or what do you recommend? And there is something I didn't know about this. It's called ENS, and it's extra or outside of typical market options if regular carriers are denying coverage. So this agent said it does cost more, but this ENS insurance is an option. I think it's more for like higher risk companies. So like mining companies or companies out there, businesses that are doing riskier things by nature of what it is. They do have another category of insurance out there. It kind of seems silly that childcare falls in that category potentially, but there is an option if your agent comes back, it's like, well, I'm just having a hard time finding something. At least you've got that out there. Say, hey, what about ENS? Is that something that would be an option? So the key takeaways are really, control what you can, prevent what you can prevent, and then control the narrative and how you are telling the story of what's going on. Ashley asked a question about trampolines. Are they required to be taken down or just have a gate or barrier? I do not know the answer to that. Gina, do you know the answer to the trampoline question?
Yes, I've seen two different ways, either or. Again, you'd have to ask your inspector, but we're talking about the insurance piece. Of course, you want to find out what the requirements are there, but for licensing, that's an issue. Sometimes I think it depends on the inspector. So you would have to confirm with them for sure. Yes.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Gina. Yeah, so I mean, they may make you take it down. I would say if you're looking for insurance, you probably would not want to have a trampoline necessarily. It might make it harder for you to get insurance. Definitely having some kind of gate or barrier, like with pools, you know, to keep it all locked up and everything. So, at the minimum, you would need to show that you have that gate or barrier, and it may be best to not have one. So now we have time for questions. If anybody has any questions, again, I would like to thank Markel Insurance. Some of you use Markel. They're a national company, but they do have an Omaha office. But I did speak to one of their agents. They are in the childcare market. Now, I'm not recommending any of them. I'm just giving you my sources for who I talk to. I also talked to someone. Now, this company, Chastain Otis Insurance, Sean Chastain is the principal there. They are like a brokerage here in Omaha. They actually insure their members at my church, and they insure our church property, which is where the preschool was, where I taught for 10 years. And we had our policy through them. So I was able to talk to Sean Chastain about some of the issues as well. Again, I'm not recommending them. I'm just telling you that I did consult with them. And then, of course, this presentation is from Sam Phillips at Comploy HR. Her email is there if you want to reach out to her if you have any questions. Again, she is in Texas, but she is licensed in many states, including the state of Nebraska. Brandy, I'm going to ask you to put one more document in the chat for me. Could you please put in from that folder the NAEYC, I don't know, it's called like liability insurance survey. NAEYC last year in 2024 put out an insurance survey brief. Basically, they kind of talked about the state of liability insurance for childcare. And it was, it's NAEYC, so it's family childcare and centers, but really some of the challenges that educators are facing in finding insurance and also what the market is like. So it's really good. It's not super long, but it's a nice article to kind of get an overview of what's going on with liability insurance in the country, and for early childhood. What kinds of questions do you have? Does this bring up anything for you? Brandy put that NAEYC article in the chat. If you're while you're thinking of a question, feel free to type it in the chat, raise your hand, take yourself off of mute. How this works is, your attendance will be recorded for coming to the live session. There is a survey in there, so we ask that you go into the learning library, into the course, that you complete the survey, and then there's a module that has resources. So pretty much these documents that Brandy's put in the chat, as well as some other ones, are in there for you to use as a reference. So you do need to click through the survey and those modules to be completed for the course, and then your certificate will be issued for that. So please do that survey, and please take advantage of downloading or utilizing any of those resources that are there. I think there's a Tom Copeland resource, again, that business questionnaire, some other questions and thoughts from this Sam Phillips at Comploy. So just some useful information that's there for you. Michelle says, why do the insurance companies not like the 24-hour care? I think, I don't know this for 100%, but I believe, if someone correct me if I'm wrong, but they don't like the fact that the caregiver is sleeping while the children who are not their own children are in their care. That's my understanding, is that it makes it more risky when they are overnight at your house, when you as a caregiver are also sleeping, because you cannot not sleep. I know it makes it very difficult. I have no idea how people who provide 24-hour care secure insurance. Oh, great. Brandy put the Tom Copeland insurance directory link there for you as well. He does have links to some different insurance companies if you are checking those out. You do have to make sure, like, so he's kind of more national level with a variety of different options there. You would want to double check that the company is licensed or can operate in the state of Nebraska. So they are on a state by state basis. So if you're going to some kind of directory like that, you do want to make sure before you get too far in that Nebraska is a place where they operate. Other questions? It is a lot of information. So again, we've recorded it and we will make that recording available. We can send out a link to those of you that were live here tonight so that you have that recording in your possession. Also, feel free to reach out to myself. I'm happy if I don't know the answer, and I probably don't, I will do what I can to locate the answer and get back to you. Thank you, especially if it's licensing, I'll phone a friend and get Gina to help me out. But yes, any other questions that come up, just please reach out. If you know anyone who is who's not taken our business training series, we encourage people to do that. We have, as you know, if you've done it before, we do cover a whole week. Week 5 is business liability insurance and risk management. So we do cover that and provide some good resources there. So if you have done it, I do encourage you to go back to that week 5 session in your participant manual and look at those items.